to life.
He still takes the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so gotta be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You are fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drug your butt off tonight. We had the best start here, bud. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thanks for showing up on another beautiful Saturday night in the first week of August. Boy, we're getting down to it. We've got Watkins Glen, Richmond, and Daytona left in the regular season. Then we hit playoffs. We also hit football, which kind of has already started also. But either way, we're not here to talk football. We're here to talk racing. We head to Upstate New York, to Watkins Glen. The second to the last road course of the season, last one of the regular season. And it's one of the, I guess, most iconic road courses for the NASCAR Cup Series. What's going on, Continental? Yes, absolutely. Let's get it on. Let's talk some NASCAR, DFS, into the regular season. All sorts of fun stuff going on. We'll talk a little Xfinity. We'll talk a little Connor Zillich. We'll talk a lot of DFS. But yeah, I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button as normal. But let's get into it. Before we do, though, let's head back to Corn Country in Iowa, where William Byron had just enough ethanol in that tank, or gasoline in the tank, to make it to the finish line and get the victory last weekend. Good for him on finally having enough fuel to make it to the end of the race, where he had not a few races prior. But either way, let's look at the optimal lineups and other optional drivers that almost made the optimal lineup. William Byron starting in second, finishing in first. Lots of players starting at the close to the front of the field, finishing close to the front of the field, kind of as expected. Thought it would probably be about a 3-3 split. William Byron dominating with 141 laps led and getting the victory. Chase Briscoe starting from the pole, so pretty much just flipped the first and second starters and finishing first and second, William Byron and Chase Briscoe. Brad Keselowski with a solid third place finish. Tell you what, it has been just a run that Brad Keselowski has been on over the last, I don't know, especially on the ovals, the last 7 or 8 oval style tracks. Definitely making kind of a push towards at least having a decent season, not enough to make it into the playoffs on points. But, I mean, you keep knocking on that door, and with Richmond and Daytona coming up, Brad Keselowski may have a shot at actually making the playoffs with a win. But Ryan Preece, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace rounding out the optimal lineup. Other drivers who did not make the optimal lineup but still had good DraftKings points days: Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's been actually on a pretty good run lately also on the ovals. John Hunter Nemechek, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, actually with a 20th place finish. Not great, but since he started 37th, it did net him 40 points in DraftKings. So good for Kyle Busch on not spinning out during the race. He just took care of that during practice last week. But the optimal lineup challenge after 23 races is absolutely knotted up top. Who is going to end up coming out on the front side of this thing? I've never seen this many cars or drivers tied for the optimal lineup challenge this far into the season. Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Ross Chastain, all with 8 optimal lineups. William Byron and Ryan Preece with 7. Yeah, it is definitely pretty much the same guys every week in, week out. Where a lot of a lot of years it's been, 3 or 4 guys that kind of are running away with it. But we've got, literally, what, 10 to 12 drivers every week that are getting close to the optimal lineup. So definitely makes it a little more challenging when we go to build some lineups to really kind of figure out who might be the standout and who won't be. But either way, that's what we do. We break it all down and we kind of look at past histories, practices, qualifying, and all that fun stuff. So let's get into it. Ken, what's going on, buddy? Looking for Busher. Oh, your Busher breakdown. I think he's going to win the race. Ooh, really? Okay. Calling it out there for old Chris Busher, the winner from last year's race here. Okay. Be great for a playoff shakeup. Right now he's in on points. He's the only RFK driver in on points currently, so it wouldn't shake up things dramatically, but it would definitely make things a little tighter. And, potentially with Daytona coming up, might make it quite interesting. So, thanks for the breakdowns. Yep, you're more than welcome. I appreciate you tuning in. And once again, hit that like button. I'm sure you already subscribed since you're already in this quickly. But anybody else, make sure you hit the subscribe button. All right, we are headed to, like I said, upstate New York, to the Finger Lake region where Watkins Glen sits in the beautiful Appalachian Mountains up in New York. Beautiful country. Absolutely gorgeous up there. And typically it can be a little bit on the cooler side, but tomorrow it's going to actually be a high of 90 degrees at the green flag. What does 90 degrees mean? Well, it's a little bit more wear and tear on the cars and the body, but also on the tires. So tire wear will be something that will become a factor. And because they run pretty high speeds and pretty sharp corners here, tire wear will absolutely play a factor. And when we get into the practice laps, we can actually see a fair amount of fall off. Actually, for all the road courses, this is probably the most significant fall off we've seen so far this year. So good on Goodyear for bringing what appears to be a pretty good, durable tire that does have fall off. So we don't have that a whole lot week in and week out. So it'll be exciting to see if that actually becomes the case for tomorrow's race. But this racetrack is 2.45 miles in length, 8 turns, only 8 turns. Race length is 90 laps, dominator points of 63. Laps led, is it 90 or 92? Did I misread that? Double check. 90 laps, okay. A lot of times they have an overtime finish. That's what last year's race was, 92 laps, I think. But either way, 90 laps for this race, 63 dominator points. And dominator points, they always play a small factor, but it will not play a big factor at all. The only real thing is if you get like an SVG or somebody like that you think could go out and lead, 60, 70 of those 90 laps, which would be a ton. But even then, 90 laps total is only 63 dominator points. It's significant, but they're not going to have every fast lap. They're not going to lead every lap because of stage breaks and the way they will pit for strategies and things of that nature. So you can cut that almost in half for almost anybody. So really 30, 31, 32 points is kind of the max on the dominator point side. So it's not something we really factor in. It's always there, but typically more of a finishing position. If you can figure out who's going to win, typically they will have some dominator points. So that's going to be kind of the key. Other tracks that we can compare to, of course, Sonoma, the Mexico road course, Circuits of the America, Watkins Glen are all road courses, turn right and left. Pretty much any track that they purposely turn right at would be in this grouping. So you could still go look at Coda, or not Coda, but the Roval would also be another track that you could put into this mix, but it's not really technically an official road course because it's on an oval. All right, let's kind of look at some optimal lineups from previous road courses over the last year and last year's Watkins Glen race. Chris Busher, Ken's pick for this race tomorrow. Chris Buescher started in 24th, finished in first. He had 19 laps led and only 4 fast laps. Ross Chastain started on the pole and actually led 51 laps and had 15 fast laps. Shane SVG had 18 fast laps, only led 1 lap. Started in third, finished in second. So as you can see, it's really who's going to finish in the top 10 and are they going to be a place differential is kind of really the key to this whole pie. Really what you're looking for ideally is probably who's going to win. You want to make sure that they're in the lineup because they typically will make the optimal lineup. And then after that, you might get another person who starts in the top 10 and finishes in the top 10 if they're able to lead some laps and have some fast laps. Beyond that, it's mostly place differential. But it doesn't take a whole lot of place differential, so we're not going to really have to dumpster dive a whole lot and go for somebody who's starting in 38th or 39th or 40th. We're not going to have to go real deep. Somewhere in the mid-teens to 27, 28 is kind of really about as far back as you want to go, because typically, unless somebody had a major issue in practice and had to go to a backup car or had to have some major changes made to the car, the way they're going to line up is kind of going to be pretty close. Like, there's a couple of opportunities of guys who practice pretty well who didn't quite have the qualifying speed, and those are the ones we'll have to really kind of take a look at on why they may have missed a little bit. But same thing here. Mexico, it was all SVG. He led 60 of the 100 laps, 18 fast laps. But Christopher Bell, starting in 31st, finishing in second, literally had 4 laps led and 5 fast laps. But because of his place differential, he actually scored more points than SVG, who dominated and won by, 14 or 15 seconds. He still outscored him by over 6 points. So it's much, much more of a place differential game when we go to these road courses or super speedways. Anytime that there's less than 160 laps, there's just not enough dominator points out there to really make a difference. Same thing at COTA from earlier this year. Nobody starting in the top 7 made the optimal lineup, but everybody who finished close to the top 10 did. So once again, there's definitely a pattern to it. What you're trying to really figure out who's going to finish in the top 10 and kind of build from there. Where do most of the DraftKings points come from in correlation to where do they start? Excluding who the person is or price. Take all that out. Where do the points come from? And that's really what we're looking for. What is the top? How many points does it take to get into the top 15? And I talk about this week in and week out, and I think it's very important because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to narrow down. Typically, you have 36 or 37 drivers. This week, we have 40 drivers. Well, how do we narrow that down to at least half? And then from there, how do you narrow it down to who your top 10 drivers? And then you kind of narrow down even further, who do you think will be your core players? And that should be 4 to 5 drivers. And then you just start to build lineups around those 4 to 5 drivers using the 10 or 15 or 20 drivers that you have left. And you just realistically discard most of the other 20. Sometimes because of the way the lineup build ends up working, you'll have some of those drivers that may or may not have a good day, and you'll put them in. But there's definitely, I can think right off the top of my head, there's probably 7 or 8 drivers that I don't have a whole lot of interest in for tomorrow. And that's just barely, without doing a whole lot of research. I've already done a decent amount of research. But even before they even get to the track, I can be like, yeah, no, I'm probably not going to touch JJ Yeley. I'm not going to probably touch Cody Ware. I'm probably not going to have much of Catherine Legg or any, really. I mean, she ended up having a decent DraftKings day at Chicago. But this course is going to be so much different. It's much faster. The potentials of getting lapped at Watkins Glen are much greater than they are at Chicago. But either way, where do the bulk of the points come from? Well, about 4.6 come from the top 10, 4.2 come from 11 through 20th, 4 come from 21 through 30, and only 2 of the drivers come from starting 31st or worse. And that's the top 15 in points. So that's not necessarily the optimal. You're trying to narrow that down to 6 for the optimal, and that's where it gets a little wonky. Where do the 6 come from? Well, we just looked at the optimals, and we saw that most of it came from the 20s and 30s, and or who is going to lead a lot of laps, potentially start up front, stay up front. So with that being said, when I look at my ranking system, where the drivers are starting, who has the best opportunity? Well, we're at a road course. Who's been the most dominant driver on road courses this year? SVG. Yeah, he's going to be ranked first because he is so good at this style track or this style racing. But when we start to dig down, SVG will be the first driver we look at. I think there's a little kink in the armor, and especially when it comes to Watkins Glen. This track has always kind of thrown SVG for a little bit of fits. It's not the traditional road course. It's high speed, pretty strong banks, but also a lot of, not banks, but it's, the turns are not as sharp. So it's much more of a flowing style track, where realistically the only real hard corners are turn 8 coming to the start finish line and turn 1 off the start finish line. After that, it kind of meanders, is probably maybe the best term for it. So most of the track is pretty high speed for the most part. And if you happen to be watching the Xfinity race earlier today, that's why we saw a 16-car melee parking lot before turn 7, coming off of turn 6. And it was ugly. It was bad. Glad nobody was actually really hurt in that. But yeah, don't typically see that even at Watkins Glen. Now, Watkins Glen has had tendencies to have 4 and 5 car, I guess, pileups or larger wrecks, where a lot of road courses it's typically 2, 3, maybe 4 at the most. But today, I think it was 16 cars involved in the wreck. Now, a lot of it was a spotter issue or driver issue that they should have slowed down a lot more than they did, and they just kind of piled into each other. Kind of silly and kind of dumb. But we won't get into my feelings about Austin Hill right now, because the guy needs to be just sad again. He didn't learn his lesson. I know it looked like a racing issue, but guess what? You've got a pedal and a brake pedal, a gas pedal, and a steering wheel. And you don't have to send it every corner against every driver. There were still 10 laps left. And he easily could have found a better place to try to do what he did. That's all I'm going to say about it. All right, SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, has got 3 road course victories on the season already. He has been absolutely dominant. And he is actually a negative 125 in the betting markets for a win tomorrow. I mean, I can't blame Vegas for setting that type of an odd, but I want the field. If he's negatively correlated in the betting market, Vegas thinks that he's a shoo-in for the win. I don't think so. This style track, this style road course just doesn't play into Shane's strong points. He likes to be able to take advantages of really, really sharp corners where he can outbreak his competitors. Here, it's much more of a long flowing corner, and he struggles with that slightly, but there's opportunities. And it showed even in the Xfinity race today that's where a lot of the Connor Zilich's and Austin Hills and Michael McDowell's and those were taking advantage of Shane, were in the long, not tight corners. But either way, SVG at a whopping 12,700. is so expensive. And it's too expensive. First off, I think his price is way, way too high. I would have said 11.5 would have probably been a reasonable price for Shane, but 12,700 is crazy. I mean, the next person we get to is going to be Kyle Larson, and he's $2,500 cheaper. I honestly, I will probably end up being a pretty heavy fade off of SVG. I haven't started to build lineups yet, so I don't know how much salary relief will end up getting or being available. But if there is room, sure, I might run a little bit of SVG. But honestly, I think I think taking Shane's much more risky than it's worth, in my opinion. And as we go through the practice laps, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about a little bit. But 12,700, he is starting outside pole. And he was decent in practice. He was still not dominant in practice. He was 6th in single lap. He did 19 total laps at practice. He was 7th in the 5-lap average. Because a lot of times you'll have some drivers who got a little over 10 consecutive laps. But a lot of guys were going out running 3, 4, 5 laps and making a pit stop, making an adjustment, and then going back out. So it was really tough for anything over 5 consecutive laps to really show a difference. So that's why we go with the 5-lap instead of the 10-lap average. Like I said earlier, SVG has 3 wins. And in the last 5 road courses, which are listed up here, he's got 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 5 top 20s. I mean, he is extremely good, but he's extremely expensive. Now, remember when we were looking at these things, I forgot to kind of point out kind of the threshold we're kind of looking for. And a lot of this kind of gets, Watkins Glen last year, we had $7,000 of salary cap left over for the optimal lineup, which is insane. That's just too much. But we had a ton of carnage last year for this race. And out of all the road courses, this road course does line up to have a fair amount of carnage, and we saw that both in the truck and Xfinity race earlier this weekend. But we've also had races at the Glen that have not had that much carnage. Andrew, what's going on? 2 races this weekend have been brutal, leading in Draftkings only to lose the last laps. Yeah, my Xfinity was screwed from a pretty much jump street today. I just didn't set the lineups correctly. And that's my own fault. I remember I realized what I did when I did it, but it was too late at that point. And the trucks, it was a Friday. It was a 5 o'clock freaking start. I was lucky to get lineups in, and I did little to no research. I looked at practice times very quickly and just knew who was good at road courses and threw lineups in for the trucks, and miraculously ended up finishing first in one of the tournaments. It was not that way until, I probably took one of your spots. Sorry. But yeah, I was literally out to dinner with my wife, and it was on the bar, and I was like, oh man, wreck. Oh, I'm looking at Draftkings. Oh, I won. I won one. First place. Okay, cool. I did little to no research. It was sheer luck. But I've said this multiple times over the last few weeks. NASCAR, Draftkings, a lot of it is strategy. A lot of it is putting the right lineups together. But a lot of it is just sheer luck. Sorry about your luck, but yeah, I sucked at the Xfinity race today. I've had 3 great weekends. The last 3 weekends with Xfinity have been phenomenal, and this weekend just did not turn out the way I needed to. Now, having 16 cars get wrecked in one corner definitely did not help with that. But either way, so what I was saying before was $7,100 is a ton of money left over, so we didn't really have I mean, shame SVG was $9,800. He's now $12,700. That's insane. He's almost $3,000 more expensive this year compared to last year. Either way, 56 points is kind of the point total to get probably in the optimal. And if we look down at the Sonoma race from earlier this year, 52 points kind of puts you in there. So we've got a 56, a 52, a 66, and a 57. So probably somewhere in the realm of 55 to 60 points will get you real close to the optimal, if not into the optimal. And that's just kind of an important number when we start to go through the calculator to see what a certain driver has to do and how far they need to get up to kind of get into that 55 point range. And that's another way we start to eliminate drivers out of that 40, how we get it broken down to a reasonable 15 to 20 drivers that we want to kind of have as our core and build from. And then you really want to get to a core 5 to 6 drivers that you build around. And this chart here also kind of shows the same type of thing, but this is for the top 15 in points and how many points on average gets you to the top 15 and Draftkings points and where their starting positions are, how many people come from the front row, and those types of things. And it's 32.6. So pretty much 33 points is kind of where the cutoff line needs to be. And if we think a driver is not going to get to 33 points, that should be a real easy indication of, hey, I'm not going to be really that interested in taking that driver this week. And for the most part, you put them aside. Now, they may fall into a couple lineups here and there, but it's not going to be in the 15 to 20% ownership range. It's going to be in the 3 to 8% owner range. And that happens. I mean, you'll have some lineups that, once again, I don't think you get down to Josh Bilicki and Cody Ware and JJ Ailey and Catherine Legg. I think those are off the board. So we could even go back up here and look. I mean, what was the cheapest? 5,700 said Zane Smith, 5,100 Josh Berry, 5,200 John Hunter, and 5,800 Noah Gregson. So 5,100 with a Josh Berry at Sonoma earlier this year kind of got you there. But I'm not sure that the four drivers I just listed are that expensive. So yeah, I think anything $5,200 and up is also kind of in play. But we'll look at the practice speeds, and it'll be very clear indication of, yeah, I'm not interested in taking that player or that driver. All right, so back to SVG. Phenomenal road courses. This is not a mystery to anyone. It's not a surprise to anyone. He's got 11 total starts, 4 wins, an 8.2 average finish for all of his road course starts in Cup racing. And he's starting outside pole. How was his practice speeds? All right, so the baseline driver, the one that we will compare everyone to, is Willie B, our winner from last week, who is also he's not like a road course ringer, but he's not a slouch on road courses either. He was phenomenal in his practice laps. But as you can see, the tire wear definitely falls off. So he was just sub 73 second times. And by lap 17, he was 74.5. I mean, that's a second and a half of fall off in 17 laps. That's a pretty substantial amount of fall off when we have 20 lap first stage and a 20 lap second stage. And then they go for a 50 lap run to finish the race. So we definitely will see tire wear being a pretty large factor in tomorrow's race. And especially with the speeds that they're carrying through the corners, we'll see a lot of slipping and sliding with the heat. So it should end up being a pretty exciting race, and one that we might see some drivers get out to a substantial lead, but I think they could easily get pulled back in if they abuse their equipment too much. All right, so what does SVG need to do to get to that 55-point range? And this is kind of the calculator we look at, and this is where we can kind of play with the numbers and kind of see how far back can he go and how far or how much does he need to do. So we've got him starting in second. If he finishes in first, he has 20 fast laps and 40 laps led. And the laps led to fast laps is about 2-1 or 3-1, give or take. And we don't have a whole lot of laps here, 90 laps. So, and you got to think, SVG has got wins, so he doesn't have to necessarily go for the win. He doesn't necessarily need to go for points either. Now, stage points could be something he may want to go after, but honestly, SVG, really all he wants to do is go win, especially on the few tracks that he has that ability, because he doesn't really have that ability on on ovals. This is his chance to shine, and he's going to take that advantage. Well, to do that means you short pit the stages, which means you come in at lap 18 and 38, so you can pit before the stage break, so when everybody else pits, you end up back out front. It also gives you the best advantage to potentially win during stage 3. So it's all strategy and all how you want to play the game. Like somebody like a Brad Keselowski at this point, or even a Brad K or Kyle Busch and those guys, they don't care about stage points at this point. They are much more concerned of how do I line up to win the race. And stage points don't matter for us either in Draftkings, but it does turn into a factor of how do the strategies end up getting played, because really what we're hunting for is we're hunting to see who's going to finish in the top 10. Well, probably your best opportunities are people who are not hunting for stage points. SVG is kind of in that weird mix where he knows that he's not going to be a strong contender in the playoffs, but every playoff point that he can get. So if he happens to be leading at the end of stage 1, he may stay out. He may opt not to pit and get the extra stage point, or to get the extra playoff point by winning a stage, because he's going to need that when it comes to playoffs, and playoff points do matter. So the SVG will be an interesting strategy to see what he decides to do either in stage 1 or stage 2 if he is leading at that point. But what does he need to do to finish? If he finishes in first, which he's done a lot this year, he has 20 fast laps and 40 laps led. That's what I was kind of going after, was why stage breaks and why wouldn't he lead the first 60 laps? Well, they're going to have stage breaks, and it depends. He's going to have to come in and get tires and fuel. So when do you do it? And while you're doing it, does somebody else take over the lead for a while? Sure. Unless cautions just happen to fall really, really weird. But the average is that doesn't typically happen. So somewhere in there, Shane's not going to lead all the laps just because of how things fall. But if he leads 40 and he has 20 fast laps, which is a 2-to-1 ratio, you could even go to a 3-to-1 ratio and kind of back him down to 15. But he's still more than plenty to get to that 55-point total, if you think he's going to win the race, which he's perfectly capable of. But his practice speed's looking at this. So you've got William Byron in the black, SVG in the yellow, and the average of all drivers is the white. So William Byron's practice speeds were better than SVG's the entire time. Now, clean air will be something that will matter. Does not matter quite as much as it does at some of the ovals, because you get some different airflows when you're turning right and left when compared to just turning left. But either way, you can aero block a little bit on these road courses, but it's not quite as great. But 12,700 is just so expensive, and he has to win. If he doesn't win, let's say he leads 40 laps. Let's say he does really well in stage 1, stage 2, It's probably not really 40 laps. So let's say he leads the first 18 and 18, 36 laps. Let's say he's able to do that. And he has 15 fast laps. Finishes in first. Or let's say he doesn't finish in first. Let's say he falls to third or fourth and finishes fourth in the race. What does that do? It takes it to 53.75. At 12,700? That's probably not going to end up making the optimal. Now, will it be in the top 15? Yeah. So is Shane still somebody that I want to potentially have in my lineups? Sure. Am I going to be super heavy on it because of his price tag? Probably not. The risk to reward is it's really hard. And we saw today he and Connor Zilic got tied up today, and he was done. He probably scored negative points today. He didn't lead a whole lot of laps, didn't have a whole lot of fast laps, and wrecked out after starting up front. So, all right, Kyle Larson, 10,200, starting in 27th. Man, Larson has just, I'm a Larson fan, but he has, it's not been bad, but it has not been Kyle Larson-esque for the last 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. I mean, is it, hey, we've got 3 wins, we're locked in the playoffs, we've got a fair amount of points to take into the playoffs with us, we're good, let's try some different things. Maybe their focus has dropped off a little bit. It's hard to say. It's not that they've been awful, they just haven't been Hendrick number 5, Kyle Larson-esque the last 2.5 months. So that's really what I'm kind of saying. And he's starting 27th. His qualifying laps were junk. Awful. They were bad. It was a bad qualifying effort on Kyle Larson. I don't know if they lost focus or if the track changed. I never really heard any real reason on why it was as bad as it was, but it was not pretty. He was really good. He was pretty decent in practice. He was 5th in single lap and 3rd in 5-lap consecutive average. Well, let's look at it. What does that look like? That's SVG. All right, hold on. Screwed something up. There it is. Always happens. All right, hold on. Let me pull it up. All right. So, let me see. Kyle Larson compared to William Byron compared to the average. And let me fix Larson's color. All right. Let me pull it over here. Oops. That's not going to work either. See, hold on. Sorry. Make sure I give you guys the right data. What does that look like? No, it's not the best. Here, I know how to fix it. Hold on. Sorry. This always happens. I always have one or two screw ups each video. There's a lot of stuff I put into this, and it all happens in one day. Or in a couple of hours. Alright, there's Kyle Larson's practice speeds. Alright, back to our regular scheduled program. So Kyle Larson fired off very, very close. And as you can see, by lap 6, he was pretty much still even with Willie B. Lap 7, he fell off. Lap 8, got a little worse. And then he fell below average. Well, that could be an indication of either Larson not having a clean track to run in, or there's a lot of different factors, or did the track temperatures change and he not change his style? It's kind of what I'm saying. But either way, you can see there's definitely a drop-off much greater than what Willie B was having by lap 8 or 9. And it's pretty significant. I mean, from 73 and a half all the way up to 70. So almost a second difference in fall off. And once again, that could have be clean air, not clean air, all sorts of different things. But starting 27th, there is the potential for a ton of place differential with Kyle Larson. The problem is when you look at his average finish, now it was really bad at Mexico when he finishes next to last. That'll definitely bring your averages down, but not all the way to 25.6. But his average finish for the last 5 road courses is 25.6. And in that time, he only has 2 top 20s, no top 10s. And this is somebody who's won 5 times on road courses. So it definitely has an indication of like, okay, there's something's not quite working the way we need it to in the Kyle Larson camp. So a little scary. But does that mean I'm taking him out of my lineups? No. It's still Kyle Larson. It's still a Hendrick Motorsports car. He still had really good fire-off speed in practice. And he was about average by lap 11 or 12. Okay, well, if you fire off real quick and then you're average, well, if everybody else is average, they're not going to be able to get around you. So each time he goes out and gains 4 or 5 spots on a restart, well, next thing you know, he's into the teens. Well, is that going to be enough? No. He needs to get to a top 10 or really a top 8 or better and have 3 fast laps. No laps led gets him to 56.35. So if we're looking at the points, if he gets to his average at 25, it definitely doesn't play. 20.35. He's out at that point. So Kyle Larson, top 10, doesn't have to lead any laps with 3 fast laps. Even if you take those away, we'll just zero that out. And he can get up to 8th, probably 7th. Would put him probably in the optimal lineup. Very doable. But there is, kind of like SVG with his practice laps, 11 to 12, he's not as bad as Kyle Larson, but SVG's price tag, I need him to lead every lap. I need him to have a ton of fast laps. I need him to finish first. Well, Kyle Larson, all I got to need is you to finish 8th or 7th. And don't lead any laps. Don't even have any fast laps. Just don't wreck. And you can make it into the optimal. So that's the biggest difference in place differential. And because there's not a lot of laps, there's not a chance for dominator points. So, yeah, I mean, so if SVG leads 36 laps, finishes in 2nd, and has 15 fast laps, it's 57.75. Well, Kyle Larson literally can get the 57 points by just moving up to 7th place. Not leading laps and not having fast laps. Which one's harder to do or which one's easier to do? I would say Kyle Larson getting the 7th, but his average finish is 25.6. So I could see the argument of like, well, maybe not. And that's the difficult part about DFS with NASCAR. There's just so many different variables that can happen. And that's why Andrew literally has been leading in Draftkings only to lose on the last lap. It's just weird stuff happens. Christopher Bell, 9,800, starting in 9th. Practice speeds were, and this is something very significant that I happen to really recognize in practice. The Toyotas were in practice and okay in qualifying. The Fords were in practice and okay in qualifying. The Chevys were pretty good in practice and pretty good at qualifying across the board. For all the Chevys compared to all the Toyotas compared to all the Fords. We had a couple of outliers. I mean, Christopher Bell, 23rd and 20th, starting in 9th. So his practice speeds were not great. Qualifying was okay. And we can see in the last 5 road courses, he's got 1 win, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, a 9.2 average finish. Andrew says, I'm not watching Draftkings tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not watching DK roller coaster. Oh, yeah, I watch it because I like to understand the thought process behind it, but a lot of times it's if you enjoy the NASCAR racing more than you do the DraftKings, watch the race and then pull up your DraftKings and be like, how did it turn out? The problem is I always go, oh, I think I've got this guy and I got this guy and I got that guy. I need to go find out if I actually have them because I also run 40 to 80 different lineups and I always forget which ones I've got. So I literally have two TVs over there and I've got three monitors here and then I've got my phone and I'm looking at way too much data, way too much practice times, way too many pitch strategies, Twitter or X, and everything that's happening. Yeah, it's literally a small war room in here when it comes to day of racing. But I also do a show and I like to have as much information as I can to help you guys win as much money as you can. All right, so Christopher Bell starting in ninth. What does that? Oh, let's look at his practice speeds. Out of the Toyotas, and I've got a breakdown of all the Toyotas, all the Fords, and all the Chevys at the end of the driver breakdown. Christopher Bell actually fired off about average, but he stayed much faster than the rest. He was still not as fast as Willie B at any point during the run. So, once again, Willie B seems to be the best car during practice. Does that make you the best car for the race? I don't know. We'll find out. But he's starting in ninth. How does he get to 55 points or above? Well, he's probably going to need to finish first, and he's going to need to lead 10 laps and have 4 fast laps. That's starting in ninth when you've got an SVG out front. That could potentially be tough to do. So what happens if you fall to third? Oops, not zero. Third. And you don't lead any laps. That's 48.8 points at 9,800. That, depending on how all the other lineups fall, may or may not put you in the optimal lineup. It'll put you in the top 15 in points. So Christopher Bell's not an absolute fade, but it is a little risky. And once again, I think at best, you're probably looking at 2 drivers starting in the top 10. The other 4 drivers are going to need to be place differentials. So, and realistically, what you're looking for is, is Christopher Bell in play? Yes. Is he in play with an SVG? Maybe, because the price is going to be pretty expensive between the two of them. Now, Christopher's a little on the dollar-wise less side than you would normally expect, even though he's the third driver on the list. He's under 10 grand. So you do get a little bit of quick relief because SVG is so highly priced, but it's not that big of a savings. And what is he going to need to do? He's going to need at least 50 points. So he's going to need to finish at least in second or have a run in one of the stages to where he's a little dominant and leads a lot of laps. But even finishing in second with only 4 fast laps and not leading a lap, that's 50.8. I'm not sure that gets him in the optimal at 9,800. So it's just a little tough. And the same thing's going to be said about William Byron, who's next in line, who is what I consider to be the fastest in practice. But going into Watkins Glen, what is Willie B's road course record? Well, he's starting 10th. He was 10th in single lap. He was second in 5-lap consecutive average. And he was probably the fastest on a much longer run, 10, 12, 15 lap times. But in the last 5 races, road course races, he's got 1 win or 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, an 18.6 average finish, average running position of 9.8. He's got 2 road course wins out of his 36 total starts on road courses. And we've seen his practice speeds. Well, Justin Haley was really, really amazingly fast during practice. And he was very consistent, where he just kind of dropped off just a little bit each lap. I mean, he almost was my constant, where I decided to go with Willie B instead, just because I liked Willie B's 17 lap run total was better than Justin Haley's. And I have a little bit more trust in William Byron than I do Justin Haley. That's how Willie B got to be the constant, not Justin Haley, because Justin Haley was really good in practice. Is there an opportunity there? Maybe. We'll get to him in just a moment. But Willie B starting in 10th, he, like I said, really, really good in practice. Finishes in second, has 5 fast laps, and let's say he leads 3 laps for a stage break. Because he now has 2 wins on the season. He's not necessarily all that worried about potential winning the race. He might be looking for some opportunities for playoff points. So maybe he kind of is hunting for that. He is currently the points leader going into this race with 3 races left in the season. So he's going to want to probably get points as much as he's going to want to get wins. As a regular season champion gets 15 playoff points, which is big. So he's going to be kind of like Shane and Christopher Bell, depending on how the race is coming about when stage 1 and stage 2 are ending. They may or may not pit early. So, but what is he going to need to do to get to 55 points? He's going to need to do better than second place, 5 fast laps, and 3 fast laps led. Because it's only 53 points. Now, would 53 potentially cover it? Maybe. This just happens to be kind of where I kind of put the line of what I would like to see him do. So it could fluctuate down to 52, could fluctuate all the way up to 58 at that price tag. You don't ever really know. It's just an estimate and a guideline. But most of the time, it's pretty close to that price, to that point total. So, at bare minimum, this is what Willie B is going to need to end up doing. Can he do it? Well, he was the fastest in practice. He's not bad at road courses. Connor Zilic. At this point, I expect Connor Zilic not to race tomorrow. He won the race earlier today, and during the victory celebration, he slipped off of the side of his car and pretty much landed shoulder head first into the concrete. Not pretty. But also, he seems to be, for the most part, he's going to be fine. Will he be fine for tomorrow's race? I doubt it. It was a pretty nasty spill. He definitely probably hit his head. Might have concussion protocols. Might not. Probably definitely going to have some soreness in his shoulders. He's young. He's 19. He'll bounce back pretty quickly because that's what kids do. But I honestly don't think Connor Zilic runs the race tomorrow. Now, he's not running for points. He's literally running for experience. Trackhouse has built the car. They've shipped it up there. They have a sponsor. They have all these things. But is there a driver that can replace Connor Zilic that could potentially run well? I was looking at the Xfinity roster, because you also have to think, is it somebody who is a Chevy driver first, or would get permission from another manufacturer to go drive a Chevy? Point being, Jesse Love and Connor Zilic are pretty good friends. Jesse Love has experience in the next-gen car, but he's a Ford driver. Will a Ford driver be allowed by Ford to go drive for Chevy? Probably not. So that takes all the Ford drivers and all the Toyota drivers out. So then you look at the Xfinity drivers who are Chevy drivers that have experience in the Cup car. Because this car is way different than the Xfinity car. And it's a road course. Realistically, there's 2. And whether they're willing to do it or even are still in Watkins Glen area, it's hard to say. But it's Anthony Alfredo, drives for Chevy, ran the Xfinity race today, is fair on road courses, and has got next-gen experience. There's one. The other one is Justin Allgaier. Of course, absolutely Chevy driver, Xfinity driver, has raced the next-gen era car only once or twice, but twice. Could potentially go race for Connor because he is teammates with Connor Zilisch in the Xfinity Series. Honestly, but that's it. It's Alfredo or Zilisch. So, and even if that's the case, they didn't practice this car. They may not even have a seat set up for him. Now, Connor and Justin Allgaier are similar size, and so is Anthony Alfredo. So the adjustment and seat adjustments won't be huge. You know, it's not like you're going from Carson Hocevar to Connor Zilisch. But either way, I will be shocked and amazed if number one, Connor Zilisch is able to be cleared to drive tomorrow. If he's going to even feel like driving tomorrow. And second, if he is, how is he going to be competitive? I don't know. I don't know the diagnosis. All I know is he was alert, stable condition, no threats to any real injuries other than he was kind of beaten and bruised and banged up and maybe had concussions, but was taken to the local hospital. Beyond that, I haven't seen anything. Let's pull the old Twitter X and see. Is there any information about Connor Zilisch suffers broken collarbone in a fall? So broken collarbone, so he will not be able to drive in tomorrow's race. And in fact, he might be out till the playoffs. Breaking Trackhouse has elected to withdraw the 87 from the Sunday. So the 87 is out for tomorrow. There we go. That is the latest that is breaking. Just happened. They have withdrawn. That showed up 7 minutes ago. So Connor Zilisch is out. So we didn't have to talk about that anymore. That sucks. And that's going to put a real damper on. He's going to have to get a playoff waiver. At least Xfinity is off next week, so I don't have to worry about that. Man, that sucks for that kid. Chase Elliott. $9,100, starting in 20th. His practice speed was 17th and 9th in the last 5 road course races. 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s, very consistent. A 9.0 average finish, 14.4 average running position, and he finished 19th in this race last year. He does lead everyone with 7 total road course wins. Let's look at his practice speeds. I mean, pretty consistent until lap 10, and then he falls off and becomes worse than average. I mean, a lot of factors could have been played into there. But starting in 20th, I mean, he's a solid road course driver. And honestly, we don't need for him to go out and win. He's kind of in the same boat as Kyle Larson. Go get a top 10 or get to a top 5, which Chase Elliott's more than capable of. He's been very consistent about getting into the top 10 or even top 5, especially on road courses this year. 3 of 5, he's gotten into the top 5. So 5th place is definitely doable. Well, from 20th to 5th with only 2 fast laps, no laps led, is 54.9. At $9,100, that probably puts him in the optimal lineup. So I definitely like some Chase Elliott. You know, is he going to be my top number 1? Doubtful, but will he be 35% owned? Yeah, probably. Chris Buescher, next in line here, $9,000. Mr. Consistency on road courses, almost always seems to get his way out of the top 10. And it is Andrew's pick for the win this week. So good luck to Andrew and Chris Buescher. I don't think he gets the win. That's me. He's starting in 12th. His practice speeds were good. He was third and sixth, single lap and 5-lap consecutive average. Average finish 10.4 on road courses. He's got the win here last year. And beyond that, he's got 3 top 10s and 5 top 20s. Very consistent. Practice speeds were, not as fast as Willie B, but for the most part, pretty good. No real issues or problems there. Starting in 12th, what's he going to need to do? Well, he's going to need to probably go win at $9,000. Second might cut it. This is second. No laps led and 2 fast laps gets you to almost 53 points. It's definitely top 15 in points. It's probably top 7 or 8 in points. At a $9,000, a top 3 probably puts it into play. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to run some bushers. Am I going to run in 30-35% like I'm going to probably run of Chase Elliott? Probably not. Am I going to run him 20-25%? Probably yes. So, because this honestly, starting 12th, the 11 through 20 spot really seems to be a real sweet spot in road courses, unless you kind of get Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, somebody of that caliber that's starting in the 20s, that you have a pretty good idea can move through the field pretty well over the course of a race. And once again, don't need him to lead a bunch of laps. I don't need him to have a bunch of fast laps. I just need him to get to a top 10. Well, Busher, I need to get you to top 3. Tyler Reddick, 8,800. Starting in 21st, that's 11.8 average finish for the 5 road courses that we've compared to. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s. Okay, well, that seems to be pretty good. He finished 27th here at Watkins Glen last year. He does have 3 wins on road courses, but lately he has been a little inconsistent. I know it's 11.8, so starting in 21st, is that going to be enough? Maybe. When we look at his practice speeds, he was 28th and 27th in practice. And once you look at the chart, it's at best average. Well, he's starting, there's 40 people starting, he's starting 21st. Well, that's about the average spot, right in the middle. Well, he kind of practiced right in the middle. Do they work on it? Do they improve? Yeah, maybe, probably. Like I said, if he's got an 11.8 average finish, starts in 21st, if he can get to 6, have 2 fast laps, that's probably enough. Because at this point, now that we've gotten under $9,000, 50 points probably gets you close to the optimal lineup or in the optimal lineup. So, and that's what I was kind of saying about Chris Buescher. At 52.9, finishing in second probably gets him there too. The same type of thing. But now he just got to get to 6. Well, an average finish of 11.8, maybe. The practice speeds kind of is a little bit concerning. And when you look at Toyotas as a whole, none of the Toyotas really had great practice speed. Concerning? Maybe. No, Zilich will not race tomorrow. They have already withdrawn the 87 Trackhouse car. That was just reported about 8 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago from Trackhouse's website / Twitter / whatever. So Zilich is out. Do not race him tomorrow. And we wish for a speedy recovery. Daytona in 2 weeks, maybe not for Connor Zilich. So he's got more than enough points. NASCAR will easily give him a waiver. He won't lose his points. So we may not see Connor Zilich again until playoffs. So just my guess on it. But no, Scott, he is out officially for tomorrow's race. Once again, Tyler Reddick, practice speeds were Oh, you're more than welcome. I just happened to look when we came through Connor Zilich. I was like, well, let me check Twitter to see if there's any update. X. Yes, I know. It's X, not Twitter. I like to call it Twix. Can Tyler Reddick get up to 6th? Maybe. Is he a fade? No. Is he a heavy play? No. 15 to 20% is probably where I'm going to end up falling with Reddick. And it kind of depends on the build. So, I mean, I like probably playing the Tyler Reddick more than I like probably playing the Ty Gibbs. Their practice speeds were about the same. Now, Ty fired off pretty quick. He was 4th in single lap, 13th in 5-lap consecutive average. He finished in 22nd in this race last year, has a 15.2 average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to. Only has 1 top 5. Now, over the course of all of his road courses in the next gen Cup era, which is always what he's always run, 5 top 5s, 14.6 average finish. Let's look at his practice speed. He fired off pretty good, and then, kind of like Tyler Reddick, was probably just about average. I mean, he's still half a second off of Willie B's pace. Well, if Willie B's starting in 10th, Willie B's going to pull away from him. And he's going to have to get around Willie B at some point to get to where we need him to get to the 50-point mark. Scott says, when you have time, who do you like in cash? Not Connor Zilic. Butcher probably. Elliott, Byron. Those are the expensive ones that we've gone over. SVG is suspect, to be honest. Starting in 2nd, his practice speeds were, I mean, they were good, but they weren't as fast as Willie B. And his long run speed wasn't as good as Willie B. So I really like William Byron. I like Christopher Bell. These are just for the expensive guys that we've kind of gone through. Chase Elliott is probably a really good cash play. Pretty safe. He's probably going to get himself worked into a top 10, which is going to be probably enough. Reddick is suspect because of his practice speeds. And all of Toyota's speeds, honestly, Christopher Bell is like one of the fastest consistently over the course of a long run. So, you know, I don't love the speeds of the Toyotas, and I don't really love the speeds of the Fords. There's some opportunities, but yeah, I mean, with cash, if you're going to be here for a little bit, I'll make sure that I kind of throw in whether I like them for cash or not. Ty Gibbs, I don't like Ty Gibbs as a cash play. I think it's very, very risky. He's got to at least get, for cash, you could probably knock 5 points off of all of these point totals on what you kind of need for them to get to. So does Ty Gibbs for cash play probably needs to get to 45 points or more. Well, what does that look like? That's going to look like a 7th with 4 fast laps, and I'm not sure he has that many, finishing in 7th. 2 fast laps gets him to 44.9. For a tournament, that's probably not going to play it. For cash, that's still not phenomenal. But for tournament, he's going to need to finish top 4. Well, there's nowhere in the speed chart other than his first lap that makes me think that he could get there. So, and like I said, the Toyotas are suspect right now. So, and don't get me wrong, the only thing I have wrong with Shane SVG is the $12,700 price tag. Yeah, that's really honestly the one major shining issue I have with SVG. It's just so expensive. And in tournaments, I bet you his ownership's only 25% because of his price tag. It's going to be a little difficult to get a Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and an SVG inside of a lineup and have anything left over. So in cash, I think it's even harder to put him into a play. To be perfectly honest, I think he could score more points with the 6 people than having a dominant SVG, because the dominant really isn't that dominant. I mean, the most that you're probably going to be able to get is what's the most that SVG could get? he goes out and leads every starting in second, he goes out and leads every lap, finishes in first. Now, there's just no way he's going to have 15 or 90 fast laps. At best, he's going to have 30, 35, and he's not going to lead every lap because of stage breaks. So maybe max of 75 of 90 laps. The most points that SVG is going to probably be able to get to is 80.5, which is phenomenal. But that's, I mean, you are literally looking at, he wasn't even that dominant. Yeah, his salary is extremely rough at $12,700. I mean, literally Kyle Larson's the next priced guy at $2,500 cheaper. And starting in 27th. I mean, if Kyle Larson goes and finishes in second, he's 13 points shy of SVG and didn't even lead a lap. So now Larson's practice speeds are a little suspect, and they've been a little bit off. That also doesn't mean anything really, because they could literally fire off tomorrow and go and work their way all the way to the front and win the race. Correct. They withdrew the 87, no replacement driver. I would have loved to have seen them gone and gotten Justin Allgaier for that ride. But I also understand the withdrawal. So they weren't racing for points. It was strictly for experience. He's going to be running for Trackhouse next year. Don't tear the car up. Find a different use for the car and pack it up. Now, it sucks, but it is what it is. Now, I bet you a lot of people will stop and think before jumping on top of their cars. The other thing, it looks like he slipped on his window net. His window net, instead of being on the inside of the car, was on the outside, draped over the metal. And I think he slipped either on that or on some of the Celebration liquid that may have gotten on the edge of the car. Because you could, if you happen to go back and watch the video, now that we know that he's, for the most part, going to be okay, he'll recover. He's young. It was scary at start, but if you go back and watch, you see him slip once right before he goes to try to get up on top of the car. And then he really slips and gets his leg caught. He's really actually probably very fortunate he doesn't have a pretty nasty concussion or cut or even some leg issues, because his leg kind of got caught in the door a little bit. It's good to be young. A little flexible. All right. We talked about Ty Gibbs. We talked about everybody else. I don't love the Ty Gibbs for a cash play, and I don't really love it for a tournament play either. Chase Briscoe, 8,500, starting in third. He was 9th in single lap, 26th in 5-lap consecutive average. He's got one top 5 out of 28 total starts, and only one top 5 in the last 5 road courses. Just have 3 top 10s, but he's starting in third. And if you think that this is a potential SVG, I mean, Briscoe is going to have to get around SVG to get the lead. And around Ross Chastain. And Ryan Blaney, but I'm not real worried about the Ryan Blaney play. At least over the course of much of the race. Definitely not as a dominator. But I also don't like the Briscoe play either. Because he was 9th in single lap, 26th in 5-lap. And if we look at his practice speeds, Willie B just beats him. Yeah, Connor's going to be fine. He'll probably miss Daytona. He might miss all the way until the playoffs. But drivers have raced before with broken collarbones. It depends on the severity. Depends on if he's going to need to have surgery and how much, what his pain tolerance is, to be perfectly honest. I mean, heck, Bill Elliott, many, many, many years ago, flipped at Daytona or Talladega, broke his femur, They pinned it, rotted it, and then they made a weird contraption to stabilize his leg in the car, and he raced like a month later. I mean, they were just built different back then, though. But I mean, he'll be fine for the playoffs. It's gonna be a road to recovery. This wouldn't be the first time missing a race in his rookie year. Yes, the Talladega crash took him out, and then Kyle Larson took that car to victory lane the following week. And then ever since he came back from that injury, he has won every race except for one. I mean, the kid is. I really was hoping he was going to race tomorrow, but I mean, I'd much rather have him get better because he's going to be a lot of fun to watch for many, many years to come. But yeah, it sucks, but for the most part, he's going to be fine. Either way, Chase Briscoe. I mean, practice speeds were slightly better than average. Well, slightly better than average is 16th, 17th, or 18th. Starting in third, that's not going to play. I mean, even if he finishes in second, behind, let's just leave it out there that SVG is going to win the race. He's a negative 125 in the gambling world. I don't think he wins. I don't think he's dominant. I'm not interested in really playing a whole lot of SVG. I'm going to play him in DraftKings, but probably I won't be underweight. I'm probably going to be 15% ownership. But either way, let's just leave the SVG is going to win the race. He's going to go out and dominate. But what does that leave for everybody else? Well, that's second place for Chase Briscoe with 2 fast laps, maybe. And maybe he leads a couple laps, but probably not. Starting in third, if he gets to second, it's only 44 points, 43 points. Well, that's enough for a top 15, but that's not going to play in the optimal. You know, and I don't really love it for cash plays. So Andrew or Scott, if you're listening, I don't like the Chase Briscoe for cash play. You know, I would much rather probably take this next driver, Michael McDowell, as a potential cash play. He was second in single lap, 4th in 5-lap consecutive average. His fall-off speed was not great, so once he got past 5 laps, it became a little suspect. We'll look at that one second. But he's got an 11.8 average finish. He ran until Austin Hill decided to destroy Michael's car in the Xfinity race. He was running really, really well. The same thing could happen in the Cup Series, other than Austin Hill's not racing it, luckily. Austin Hill shouldn't be racing anymore ever again anyways. But that's a whole nother story that we'll talk about later. But Michael McDowell, starting in 6th, I mean, he probably is lined up for a good, solid top 5, maybe top 10. Like I said, if we look at the practice speeds, he's fine until lap 7 or 8, but then he kind of stops anyways. I think Michael McDowell is going to be fine, but for DraftKings purposes, it's still an uphill climb. From 6th to 2nd, or 6th place to 2nd place, it's 47.35. So, he's got an 11.8 average finish. I mean, does he... He doesn't play if you play SVG in a lineup. Or at least not easily by any means. It's just asking for too many variables to happen. Can they happen? Sure. But if he goes and gets his average finish of 10th or 11th, that's 31 points. That doesn't even make the top 15 in points. So it's hard to get there. So I think, can Michael McDowell be in a lineup? Yes, absolutely. Do I put him into a lineup with an SVG? No. There's not enough dominator points for the both of them to share, and what you're looking for is enough place differential. It doesn't have to be a huge place differential, but there needs to be enough place differential to offset the price. And Michael McDowell's price is still just a little too high even getting to second, he's going to need to probably get to 50 points. Now, as it potentially leads a couple laps when somebody else doesn't, yeah, maybe. But once again, that's a whole opportunity and being at the right place at the right time. I mean, last year going into it, everybody thought SVG was going to dominate the race last year. And guess who dominated the race last year? Ross Chastain. Led something like 51 laps. Didn't win the race, he finished 4th. But he dominated the race last year. He started from the pole. SVG started second, and Ross got the jump, led most of stage 1, most of stage 2, and then he fell back to 4th. I mean, still a really good points day last year for Ross. He made the optimal lineup. He and SVG both did. And what was Ross's price tag last year for this race? Ross Chastain was $7,500, and SVG was $9,800. No, we had $7,100 left over on the optimal. But yeah, I mean, he led 51 laps and 15 fast laps. SVG only led 1 lap last year and finished second with 51 points. You know, could he have been 12,700 and would it still have played? Yeah, because there was still enough salary cap left over. Because you had a $5,700 Dane Smith from 19 to 5th. But can you have 2 drivers that both start in the top 5 or top 10 make the optimal lineup? Yes. But one of them's going to have to be the dominator and be cheap enough. Well, Ross Chastain, what was he? $8,300. It just gets a little bit tougher and a little bit stickier to make that work out. Now, Ross is also starting in 4th. He's not starting on the pole. You know, can Ryan Blaney be the Ross Chastain? Don't think so. So 4th to 2nd, even if he goes and leads 20 laps, that's what we need to happen for Ross to make probably the optimal lineup at 50.35 points. And also, if he leads that, he's probably going to have closer to 7 or 8 fast laps, which will give you 52. I mean, it's a coin flip. It's put one top 5 driver in that you think is going to have a little bit of domination and still be there at the end of the race. Now, Ross has shown that he did it last year. SVG showed that he could do it last year. And it was lucky that the price worked out for both of them to do it from last year. So it's possible to have them both there. But if you look at the optimals, it doesn't happen very much at road courses. Only one person in the top 5 or even top 10 at Sonoma. One person at Mexico. Really only one person 26th or better, which was SVG, who led 60 laps. And only one person starting in the top 10 for Coda. And that was 95 laps. So very, very similar lap count totals. And that's really what you're kind of looking at. It's just real hard to fit 2 people who start in the top 10 together. And typically their price, because most of the time the price becomes an issue. So could Ross be one of the drivers? Sure, absolutely. He was last year. There's no arguing that. And his practice speeds were better than average for the entire run. Were they as fast as Willie B? No. Does that mean Willie B is going to be able to catch him and get around him? It's kind of tough to... It's a little hard to pass in this next-gen car. There's always that. Track position plays a big key. So maybe. Doubtful. So can Ross hold off Willie B long enough for pit cycles to happen? And then maybe Willie B gets around him? Maybe. Or, you slip in one corner and you can get around the person. AJ Allmendinger. Ooh. Even I was hopeful for AJ to potentially have a walk off at the Glen this year and make the playoffs. I just don't. All the numbers that I'm looking at don't make sense. Now, could he be in play for Draftkings? Absolutely. I don't love it, but he's in play. $8,200 starting in 18th. He was 24th and 19th, so pretty much practiced and qualified all about the same spot. In the last 5 road courses, this is AJ Allmendinger, the road course ringer, with only 1 top 10, 3 top 20s. A 20.6 average finish with a 12.7 average running position. Now, out of all the racetracks, last year was not good for AJ. He finished 36th. Either had mechanical issues or wrecked. I can't remember which. I think he wrecked. I think he was in that melee with Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin and those guys. But, yeah, I mean, his practice speeds were average to worse than average, which is scary for AJ. Which means he's really not happy with the car. What's he going to need to do? All he's got to do is get to 7th. Very possible. I don't mind AJ as a potential cash play, but Andrew or Scott, if you're still listening, buyer beware a little bit. His practice speeds were not great. Now, AJ has a tendency to overperform on road courses, but recently, it's been a little suspect. Denny Hamlin, $8,100. Self-described as not a very good road course racer. In fact, if you go listen to his podcast this past week, he's like, yeah, I'm not good at these road courses. He is starting in 22nd, so there is absolutely some room for place differential here. And he missed Mexico, but in 4 of the last 5 road courses, 1 top 5, which happened to be at Chicago, which definitely is a very difficult road course to finish well at. A lot of strategy came into play for that. He's got a 17th place average finish. His average running position is about where he's starting, 21.8 to a 22. Finished 23rd of this race last year. He did get damage on, I think, first or second lap. That definitely kind of put a damper on his day last year. But once again, we look at the Toyotas in this practice, and it's about average or worse. Most of the Toyotas, this is the way it looks. Most of the Fords, this is the way this looks. Most of the Chevys are much closer to Willie B's time frame. The Chevys just practiced a lot faster. Now, does that correlate to potentially a good day tomorrow? Oh, man, that's all we have to go on at this point. But all indications are the Chevys are going to be the car to beat tomorrow. Now, the past couple races have been Toyotas for the car to go beat, but yeah, the Chevys are the car to beat tomorrow. But what does Denny Hamlin need to do at $8,100? Get a top 10. So Denny Hamlin's absolutely in play for a cash. He's $8,100. He's pretty cheap. I'll have 20-25% ownership for Denny Hamlin, but I expect him to probably have that type of ownership anyways. Now, he may actually come in slightly under because people are like, well, he's not that great at road courses. He's also smart enough to just end up with an okay finish. And honestly, that's what he needs, is a 8th to 12th place finish. And it ends up playing. Ryan Blaney, I still have no earthly idea what he did on lap 3 of qualifying. Because it literally took him lap 3 to hit the pole. And he got the pole. But he was 14th in single lap, 14th in 5-lap consecutive average in practice. He's got 1 win on a road course out of 40 starts. And in the last 5, he doesn't have a top 10, has 3 top 20s. He finished 38th in this race last year, and that was a first lap melee. I honestly don't see him holding off an SVG for much more than 3 to 5 laps if he happens to jump out and get the lead early. I don't expect he's going to go and lead most of stage 1 like Ross did last year. Could it happen? Sure. But the practice speeds, I mean, at least for the Fords, it was okay, but it was still just better than average to just worse than average. So, I mean, Willie B's only starting a few spots behind Ryan Blaney. And with Willie B's speed, he'll catch him and pass him in 5 laps. And that's Willie B. So, I will be pretty much a full fade on Ryan Blaney tomorrow. I'm not even sure that I even run him in one lineup. I just don't. Ryan Blaney's not that good at road courses. He's not. There are a lot worse out there, but he's just not that good. And the practice speeds are just not that good, and the Fords are not that good. So I'm going to be pretty heavily faded off of Ryan Blaney. And I'm not sure Matt will join the chat or whatever tonight because he's probably watching football. That's his really forte. But he would call Ryan Blaney the sleeper pick. Sleeper pick somebody that I think actually might have a shot at doing something. I'm not saying Ryan Blaney can't, but there's nothing in the last 5 road courses or in practice that show me that that's a possibility. Alex Bowman, $7,800, starting in 7th. He was 12th in single lap, 8th in 5 lap. He finished 18th in this race last year. He's got 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s. He did win the Chicago race at the road course last year. He's been pretty consistent. Andrew says, how will it work with the 87 out? Does that change everyone's official starting spot? No. What will happen is he will drop out, fall to 40th. And because he's not racing for points or really for money, it really, I mean, they may end up getting a check for $5,000 or $10,000, which won't cover much of anything. But as far as points and everything else, he'll get with a 25th place starting spot, and for DraftKings, because he qualified, then he'll be credited with 40th place. So what that will do is, I think he was starting 25th. So that line, the odd line, which is typically the inside left line, everybody will move up that was behind him. So 27th, 29th, 31st, 33rd, 35th, 37th, 39th will all just slide forward. It's just like if somebody had to do unadjusted repairs and would fall to the tail end of the field after those repairs before the race starts. But then they never start. And they finish 40th. That's where the 87 will be. Yeah, so it does not change the 27th place starting spot. 27th will just get a bonus and actually be starting in 25th. But as far as DraftKings goes, it will still be credited with the 27th starting spot, and Zilich will still be the 25th starting spot, but he just won't ever start. Scott asks, can you put together an example GPP lineup for learning purposes? Sure. Large field GPP. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Of course, I've got to get my old text message here. All right. Pull this over here. Get this lined up. All right. Let's go to the Chrome horn and build a lineup real quick. All right. So for a road course, mostly a road course, because a Daytona is going to fall into a different, Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta fall into a different category of how you play, but it plays very similar because you don't have a lot of laps, which means you don't have a whole lot of Dominator points. So what you're looking for is place differential, and what you're looking for is what. And a lot of times GPP, you don't end up having to spend all of your money. So honestly, if I'm looking at this very quickly, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be like, okay, who do I think might dominate? Well, we'll start with SVG. And my Dominator high-end person who I think might win this race, I kind of just, that is what it is. So then I go, okay, who's got the best opportunity for place differential for the money? Well, I'd like the Chase Elliott play. So, okay, let's start there. Now, I'm already down to $7,000 for each remaining driver with 4 drivers left. That's pretty brutal, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to go look for some cost savings right out of the gate. And a Todd Gillen, okay, I like that. That's $6,700. That's a little bit of savings. And he's starting 28th. I just happen to know this because I've looked at all the practice speeds and average finishes before starting this video. I like the Cole Custer play at 5,300, so I'm going to get a lot of cost savings there. So now I'm back up to 8,100. So now I can start to kind of go, okay, this is kind of the sweet spot, in my opinion. So like a Denny Hamlin ends up playing at 8,100. Still leaves me $8,100 left. And then when I start to look down through here, I don't really say like $8,100 or less. I don't like Blaney. I don't really like the Bowman play. Bowman could probably play as cash, but probably not in GPP. Busch starting in 5th could be somewhat sneaky at 7,700. Ryan Preece 17th. His practice speeds weren't that great. Joe Logano, I mean, I'm all the way down here. Daniel Suarez. I mean, I'm leaving $1,000 on the table. Is that ideal? It's not awful. It's not great though. The John Hunter, Nemechek, and Eric Jones legacy did not look good at practice. I don't like anything about the Toyotas a whole lot this time around. So something along the lines, if I'm going to try to be sneaky, maybe probably the one Ford driver I did like on his practices was Austin Cindric starting in 13th, and he's probably not going to have a whole lot of ownership. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, is a SVG to go out, dominate, and lead, and just he's probably going to have some ownership, other than his price tag may draw some of that ownership down. So I don't mind this. So let's clear that. And how do I build it without an SVG? So the first thing I want to do is go, okay, who other than SVG could be the potential dominator? Or do we even have a dominator? So who do I... Willie B's the guy that was really, really fast in practice. So I'm going to start there. Then a Kyle Larson, got a ton of place differential. I still like the Chase Elliott play. So, it's a kind of a Hendrick lineup, but I really like the Chevys. And I'm down to $7,000 per. Well, let's go save some money. Zane Smith starting in 34th. That's probably a pretty good play. He might have some decent amount of ownership, so it's not real sneaky. Now I'm up to $7,800 again. Now I'm back into this kind of this. It typically is the sweet spot, but it's kind of a little suspect. Maybe a Todd Gillen starting in 28th is a pretty decent place differential, but he might have some ownership. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., no. Noah Gragson, no. Justin Haley, he was very, very fast in practice, but didn't even put him in the last lineup, so we'll put him in. Well, now all of a sudden, I'm at almost $10,000 for my last driver. Well, C. Bell was actually pretty good in practice. He's starting in 9th, and that fits. Will he be in 9th and a 10th would still fit. So that's what I'm looking for. Is what's the potential of somebody else having this lineup? I'm not sure that Zane will probably get played. Chase will get played. Larson will get played. Byron will get played. But I don't think the Willie B. Bell combo will be in a whole lot of lineups. So this probably would be more of a cash lineup, to be perfectly honest. I think it's actually probably a pretty decent cash lineup. And I think it probably ends up playing in a tournament. It's not going to take down and finish probably in the top 5 or 10. So I would do this in a small field GPP. I would not do this lineup in a large field GPP. It's not different enough. So if I'm looking to be different, I'm gonna go with, I'll take a Justin Haley out and throw a Josh Berry in. Josh Berry is probably going to be sub 5%. He was decent in practice. I'm really not expecting anything out of it. And then at $9,400 or less, Ty Gibbs probably won't have a whole lot of ownership. Throw Ty Gibbs in. So now I'm looking at a Josh Berry with a sub 5% ownership, a Ty Gibbs with a sub 10% ownership. If these two happen to do well, then this lineup's probably going to end up running pretty well, even with 4 other drivers being on the higher end of ownership. And I'm not sure Zane gets much over 15%, but Elliott, Larson, and Byron, I expect all to be 20% or more owned. So that's how you start to differentiate, is by looking for the abnormalities or low ownerships of drivers who might have a decent day. I don't like the Ty Gibbs play at all, but it differentiates enough that it could play. So I would probably run this in a large field tournament. Does that help with building a GPP lineup compared to a cash lineup? Because I kind of built one of each there. So let me know if that helps, Scott. Yeah, I mean, cash is kind of like cash for all daily fantasy sports. It's what's the safe play? Who are, and you're not concerned about ownership because all you're doing is typically, so a cash is either the 50-50s or double ups. And all you got to do is either beat half the field. Typically, that's all you got to do is beat half the field. So, maybe I need to start tracking more of what the cash lineup threshold is, or kind of the fluctuating line for these type of tracks. And then as we're building these lineups, we can kind of build a cash in a GPP type lineup. I typically just play large field and small field GPPs. So the small field GPP ends up turning into kind of a cash lineup just because you're not going up against as many people. So hopefully that helps. Let me know. Did we discuss Alex Bowman starting in 7th? Don't love it. Don't hate it. His practice speeds were not as good as the rest of the Hendrick guys. And he's starting a little far up. So his average finish is 11th. Out of all the Hendrick guys, I would probably fade off of Alex Bowman. But that also will be the case, and he'll probably be sub 10% ownership. So it's a possibility to play him in GPP and be a little sneaky. Kyle Busch also will probably potentially end up being a little sneaky because he was 15th in single lap. He did not do a 5-lap consecutive average. He did 11 total laps of practice, which really wasn't a whole lot compared to everybody else was doing 16, 17. He's got a 17.4 average finish. He runs road courses actually recently pretty well, and he actually showed some pretty good speed in qualifying. Of course, he qualified 5th. One of these days we should do a snake draft. I actually, let's see, the first week they had the snake draft out, I hit. I won a 4-person snake draft. The problem is, I'm not sure they have the snake drafts going at this point. Let's see. NASCAR tomorrow, snake. Oh, they do have some snakes. I don't know how long it's going to take to fill up tonight, though. And I don't want to all of a sudden get into one and go to bed and miss it. You could set your drivers to where they auto draft. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be up that long to do a snake draft tonight. But maybe I'll sign up tomorrow. Oh, Scott, you're more than welcome. And that's why these videos end up taking so long, is because people ask me to do these things, and I don't mind doing them. That's what this video is for, is to help kind of break this down and explain it. But that's why these videos end up being 2.5 hours long, because we end up going, I guess, down rabbit holes of some type. But now we're going to start to cruise through the rest of these drivers, because I think we're only about halfway through, and we're an hour and 45 minutes in, which is fine. Once again, I pretty much keep about 3 hours available for this video. And honestly, it really helps me process all the information, and I start to see things that I may have overlooked by the time I get to building my lineups tomorrow. So, Ryan Preece, $7,600, starting in 17th. It was not good in practice. He was 33rd and 32nd in practice. He's got a 15.2 average finish on road courses. He's been pretty consistent. 17th, though, starting is a little bit far up. When we look at his practice starts, he never broke the average. He was slower than average across the board, and he's starting slightly better than average. That's kind of a tough uphill climb to get out of. So that's a little bit worrisome. So that could end up being sneaky. There's enough place differential room for him. So he, at $7,600, he probably could get away with 47, 48 points. But he's going to need to finish close to probably 7th. Yeah, probably 7th place with 2 fast laps, no laps led. Is it possible for Ryan Preece to do that? Yeah. Is it? It makes me a little worried when I see the practice speeds. That's the issue. They'll make adjustments. But Ryan Preece is also not like the road course guy you go to have a consistent day. So I'll have a little bit of ownership, sub probably 10% though. Joey Logano, $7,500, starting in 11th. He was 18th in single lap, 12th in 5 lap. He's got a 16th place average finish for the 5 road courses we're comparing to. He finished 15th in this race last year, and his practice speeds were at least better than Ryan Preece's, but he's starting 6 spots better. Slightly better than average, still not as good as the Chevys or William Byron, with an average finishing spot of 16th. And really, he's probably going to need to get to 45 or 46 points to be potentially in the optimal. How far is he going to need to get up? He's probably going to need to get to like 4th, maybe 5th. I mean, it's possible for Joey to do that. I'd probably put him 3rd or 4th out of the Ford camp to be able to get up there and do that. So I just think it's a little tough. It's not completely out of bounds, but it's not something I'm probably really all that interested in doing. Same thing with Carson Hocevar. He's starting too far up, and I really don't like this name Hurricane. I much prefer the Carson Chaos Hocevar. Denny Hamlin was already Hurricane, so Lee Diffie change the name. It's Carson Chaos Hocevar, not Carson Hurricane Hocevar. We already had Hurricane Hamlin. But his practice speeds, I mean, his first 5 laps were great, and then he just fell right off. I mean, the tire wear was just not good for Carson. And starting in 8th, short run speed, not bad, but long run speed, not good. He's going to need to get to third. He finished in third last year, but it was Carson's middle name. It was chaos last year. Absolute chaos. Austin Cindric might be if you happened, so one of the bets I always love to kind of throw out there, and I always just put $1 or $2, is the best driver from each manufacturer. Pick the Ford driver, pick the Chevy driver, and pick the Toyota driver who's going to finish the best. And like a $2 bet can win you like $500 or $600. It's really hard to hit, but I've hit it twice over like the last 2 years. But I'm betting $2 at a time. If I hit two of them, yeah, typically I end up making money at the end of it all. Maybe I got lucky. I don't know. But Austin Cindric actually is, in my opinion, probably the best Ford in practice. And it doesn't appear that way if you don't have all of the data for each lap. So I want to show you exactly what I mean. $7,200 starting in 13th. This says, and this is coming off of NASCAR's practice site, 22nd in single lap, 16th in 5-lap consecutive average. All the rest of this is, he's not super great at road courses. He's also not as bad as these numbers appear. He's got a 15.6 average finish for his total road course history, 22nd for the next gen era. But, okay, 22nd and 16th in practice. And then we look at his actual chart, and it's actually not bad at all. In fact, he gets actually very close to Willie B on the long run. I suspect, or I have a guess, or I'm going to probably put Austin Cindric as my favorite Ford driver for tomorrow. My favorite Toyota driver is Christopher Bell. The tough one is picking the third, which is going to be the Chevy driver, because you've got Willie B, who's, in my opinion, hands down, probably what appears to be the fastest in practice, going against an SVG who's starting up front, who, as we've seen, has been very dominant on road courses this year. So, maybe you do two bets, one with Willie B and one with SVG, $2 each. Now, the SVG is going to draw the pot prize way down, but that's just my guess. So I like the Austin Cindric play. I don't think it's going to have a ton of ownership. This is probably my sneaky pick of the week, would be the Austin Cindric play. Does it end up happening? I don't know. That's the fun part about DFS and NASCAR. Who knows what's going to happen? And you don't know until it's, as they say, the fat lady sings or the guy waves the checkered flag. Daniel Suarez, $7,100 starting in 19th. 22.2 average finish for road courses over the last 5 races. He finished 13th in this race last year. Practice speeds were average. He's starting average. Probably going to finish average. He's going to need to get all the way up to 7th or 8th to probably make it. Yeah, probably, maybe 8th. Yeah, so 19th to 8th for Daniel Suarez. I'm not sure I see 8th place in here. Or here. He does have the one win at Sonoma. He has struggled at Watkins Glen, to put it lightly. Let's see, next in line here, Brad Keselowski starting 16th. He was 35th and 31st in practice. He was right there with the rest of the Fords. I mean, they just struggle bus coming out of the Ford camp this week at Watkins Glen. He's got a 22.8 average finish. Finished 26th in this race last year. He's starting, in my opinion, a little too far up for my liking. I mean, at the tail end of it, he gets to about average, but his fire off speed was not great. I mean, I think the best we get out of Brad is, maybe with some strategy, he works himself up to a 8th, 9th, 10th. If he gets to 9th, it plays. So the Brad Keselowski play, the problem is I like the practice speeds coming out of Austin Cindric much better than I like the practice speeds coming from Brad Keselowski. So, and they're both starting close to each other. And they're both about the same price. You've got Austin Cindric at 7,200, Brad Keselowski at 7,000. Not much difference. Now you get a little bit of relief with Brad Keselowski starting in 16th and Austin Cindric starting in 13th, but Austin was faster. So, next, Bubba Wallace at $6,800 starting in 15th. I mean, we have hit the proverbial brick wall at this point because Bubba Wallace qualified 15th. He was 34th and 30th in practice. We look at his practice speeds, and they're worse than average. And he's starting 5 spots better than the average, which would be 20th. In my opinion, he's starting too far up. He's got a 20.6 average finish over the last 5 races we're comparing to. And over the course of his 36 total starts on road courses, it's 22.2. He's slightly improved recently, but not, 20.6 compared to 22. Yeah, it's a slight improvement. It's not great, though. So, I'm probably going to be a fade off of Bubba Wallace. I think a lot of people will be, honestly. I mean, between him and Brad and Torres and Cindric, I'm going to go with Cindric out of that group because more likely everybody's going to fade all the way down and come to Todd Gillen, who's starting in 28th, because we've got a lot more place differential. And if we look at the practice speed, he was 8th and 10th. Now, on the chart, it doesn't look quite as good as that, but it's there. And he's starting 28th. He's got already a potential. He finished in 16th. If he goes and just gets close to that, if he gets a 13th, he's at 45 points at 6,700. That will probably play into the optimal all day long. I really, really like the Todd Gillen play for tomorrow. John Hunter Nemechek, 6,500, starting in 31st, 27th and 28th in practice. And it's just as ugly as the last couple that we've looked at. 18 point. Now this is the positive. 18.4 average finish for the last 5 races on road courses. Okay. And 23.2 for his career on road courses. But if you look at the practice speeds, the first 4 laps or so were great, and then it were not great. They were about average. And then it just kept getting worse. He is 75 seconds there to 73.5. He's a second and a half speed difference between him and William Byron. That's tough. You're losing a second and a half per lap. Yeah, it takes you 75 seconds, so it's going to... Are you going to get lapped? No. Are you going to move up at all? Probably not. That's a real struggle. So, I do like the place differential potential for John Hunter Nemechek compared to his average. Now, if he gets to his average of 18.4, it at 6,500, it might play, depending on how all the other lineups fall. It's 38 points. Definitely top 15, but I'm not sure it gets to the optimal. He's going to need to be 15th or better. Eric Jones, $6,400, starting in 30th. He was about the same as John Hunter Nemechek, to be perfectly honest. He was 25th and 35th. John Hunter's got a better than average finish over the last 5 races. And Eric Jones' practice speeds were, slightly better than John Hunter's, but they weren't great. So, they're better. They're both starting about the same spot, 30th and 31st. So, I don't mind taking one or even both, depending. But I'm also not expecting a whole lot. But you don't need a whole lot. You need a 12th to 16th place finish out of these guys. to probably maybe get to optimal. So it's a shot in the dark, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a shot in the dark. They're GPP plays. I would play one of each in cash, along with the Chase Elliott's Larson type plays, because you do need to differentiate slightly. Josh Berry at 6,200. Josh is getting better at road courses, but he's still not good at road courses. He finished 25th at Watkins Glen last year. Practiced 19th and 18th on lap times. Oops, that's not the correct breakdown. Where is my chart? Let me fix that real quick. There's one of my other mess ups. I always have a couple. Let's see. Josh Berry, William Byron, and the average. All right. Let me pull that over real quick. The way you can see it. Okay. I mean, slightly better than average, then slightly not as good as average. So about average. Starting in 24th, he's starting a little bit worse than, because you would think average is 20. Middle of the pack. So that's what I kind of look at. I'm like, okay, he's slightly better than average, then he's a little bit worse than average. So he's probably going to finish probably close to 20th. I wasn't able to watch qualifying. Did they get multiple qualifying laps? Yes. Little rainy. Actually, that's how most of the guys had their fastest lap on lap 3 or lap 4 of qualifying. They were able to build heat into the tires, which made them a little bit better handling. But the problem is, as you can see, the fall off is pretty significant after lap 5 or 6. So it's a pretty level line upwards in the fall off, but kind of the sweet spot seemed to be at about lap 3 to 4. So Ryan Blaney got the pole on lap 3, I think is what it was. And SVG got his fastest lap on lap 2 and did not do a third lap because he was in the first qualifying session and he had the fastest speed at that time. So they just said, okay, we're good. Not knowing that Ryan Blaney was going to go out and put up a heater of a lap. So, but Josh Berry, starting in 24th, he's going to need to get to at least a top 15, maybe a top 14. I mean, it's 10 spots better than his average. And that only gets him to 37. So I'm not sure that it really ends up playing. Austin Dillon is god-awful at road courses. He's never finished in the top 5. He's only got 2 times in the top 10. And in the last 5 races on road courses, he's never finished in the top 20. With a 29.6 average finish, he's starting in 26. And his practice speeds were not good. Well over a second off of William Byron's. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Austin Dillon, so you guys have fun with that if you decide to play him. I'm not interested. Noah Gragson, ton of place differential here. But, oh my God, Noah's been just about awful this year. I feel bad for him because I really, really like Noah Gragson. And I think that's probably the one good thing that he's got going for him is he is very popular. But yeah, the racetrack gods have not been very good to Noah Gragson this year at all. Starting in 36th, he was not great in practice. He's got a 23.2 average finish, though, so he ends up finishing these road courses better than normal. He finished 11th last year. He's got a ton of... He's going to be better than everybody that's starting behind him. I just don't know how far up the field he gets. He's going to need some attrition and him not being the carnage of that attrition to make it work. All he's got to do is get to 19th. Not quite as average. He's going to have to finish slightly better than average, but I think he's definitely in play. But I think he's probably going to end up having some ownership because of name recognition, and he's probably the best car that's starting that far back. Same thing with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's not good at road courses. One top 20, only 2 top 10s ever on road courses. Starting in 35th, he's got an average finish of 29.2 over the last 5 races on road courses, and he had 1 lap better than average. Beyond that, now he's starting 35th, so he doesn't need to be. He needs to be right here for all of the race, and he'll come out with a 22nd, 23rd place finish, starting 35th. It almost is enough. It's going to be enough for a top 15 in points. Probably, depending on how lineups end up falling, probably not enough for optimal though. Justin Haley put on a blistering display during practice. Did not so much in qualifying. What's this chart? Is that Zane Smith? I really screwed all these up earlier. Let's see. Justin Haley. To Willie B. There it is. He's a different color. Oh well. He'll just have to be a different color. Alright, let me fix this real quick and be able to see it. There it is. Alright, so Justin Haley, first, unpracticed, starting 23rd. He's got an average finish of 21.2, which is actually kind of where he's starting from. And if he's this fast in practice, which, I mean, he almost was the spot up, the driver that was going to be the constant. He was fast. He was really fast in practice. And he's had moments of really good road course races. He's also had some that were not so good. The nice thing is he showed the speed and then he didn't qualify in third, because then I'd be like, I just can't trust Justin Haley to stay up in the top 5. Well, starting in 23rd, now all I need you to do is go get 13th. And if he actually has this speed during the race tomorrow, he's going to finish well better than 13th. So now the problem is most everybody's going to look at first in practice and be like, oh, starting 23rd, I'm taking him all day long. So he's probably going to have a fair amount of ownership. So there is that downfall. So I would put Justin Haley in a cash play. I'll have him in some tournaments, but I expect his ownership to be probably a lot heavier than I want it to be. God, I really screwed all these up. I had this. I need to double check these before I go live. But I literally have like 4 hours between the time qualifying and practice finish up and putting all that in and pulling all the information down and building these charts. So just bear with me. I'm sorry. My Zane Smith practice sheet was not correct. Lucky enough, it doesn't take long to put it together. All right, there we go. All right, Zane Smith. So I definitely like the Justin Haley play. I think he might have too much ownership, so we might get eaten up on that. Zane Smith, I definitely kind of like this play, though. 34th. He was 29th and 24th in practice. So he might not get as much ownership because practice speeds were not that great. And they really weren't. But when you look at the chart, he's not that far off of average. And he's starting, 34th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting behind him, and Noah Gragson starting behind him. And then we've got Scrubs. So I think Zane's probably the better of those two drivers. So I definitely like the Zane Smith play. And he's got an average finish of 22nd. He finished 5th in this race last year. There was some carnage that helped him out getting there. But still, if he gets to 19th, it's almost 40 points. At 5,600, that probably puts him in the optimal. Ty Dillon starting in 33rd. $5,500. He was 30th and did not do a 5-lap consecutive run. And his practice speeds really, when we look at the chart, they're not that good. They're not awful, but starting in 33rd, I just, I don't know. Something's off at Colleague this year, and they've had some races that have gone okay for him, but majority of the time, they have not gone super well. I'm just not expecting a whole lot out of Ty Dillon for this race tomorrow, especially with these practice speeds. Now he's starting 33rd, so we've got some room to go. If he gets up to 18th, which I think is asking a lot, that's 40 points. I put a little more faith in the Cole Custer play, at least Cole Custer at the last two road courses. Actually, the last three, I mean, most of these road courses this year, he's had a pretty good finish, 21.8. He's starting 32nd. He was 20th and 15th in practice, and when we look at the practice charts, he's better than average for almost all of his laps. I like the Cole Custer play, and I don't know how much ownership he's going to end up actually getting. It'll definitely be sub 10%. But for a cheapie, this is probably going to be my core cheap play. And like I said, I don't know if he goes and gets a lot of ownership with a 20th and a 15th. Like Justin Haley's going to get played because he was first in practice. Cole Custer's probably going to get overlooked. And he's got 9 spots more place differential. Now, do I think Cole Custer is going to be as fast as Justin Haley? Probably not. I don't need him to be, though. He gets to 18th, and it's 39.45 points. 39 plus 1 fast lap. So, is it optimal? It gets real close at 5,300. I mean, that's really, really cheap. Riley Herbst, $5,200 starting in 29th. It's not awful. It's not great. But Riley Herbst just has had luck all year. His practice speeds were not bad, not great. I mean, they're better than average. Well, they're probably right at average. And he's starting 29th. So there's some room to run. One of these races, Riley's going to have a decent run. Like I said, I mean, he's got a 22nd place average finish on road courses. So his road course history is a little bit better than his ovals. So I don't mind probably having a little bit of ownership, but this is probably about as low as I'm going to want to go. We're going to blaze through these last ones. Josh Bilicki was starting in 40th. He was last in practice, and if you look at the chart, all the way up here in the top left, that was his 2 practice laps that were registered. Not good. $5,100 even starting in 40th, I'm not interested. Cody Ware starting in 37th was way off the pace from Jump Street. Not interested. Catherine Legg starting in 38th. All of her lap times 75.5 or worse, where literally Willie B's sub 73. Not interested. JJ Yaley, same thing. All 2-3 laps were over 75.5 seconds. They're all starting 37, 38, 39, 40th. And I just don't have any interest in them. All right, let's take a look real quick. Practice comparisons for the drivers that I really... Well, Connor Zilic is no longer here anymore. Sorry. Well, not. He's still with us, but broken collarbone. Not racing. Justin Haley in blue. William Byron in black. McDowell is in this yellow. And they're all better than the average. And they're all starting, I think for the most part, in the back. But these are the drivers that I really, really like. It's kind of this would have been my core. Connor Zilic was really, really fast, and he's starting 25th. It's a real shame that he's not going to be racing tomorrow. All right. This is the practice chart for all of the Chevy drivers, including Justin Haley. And as you can see, most of the Chevy drivers, there's 3 that were kind of, for the most part, above the average line, but everybody in the Chevy camp is below the average line. If we go to the Ford camp, it's slightly worse, but it's not awful, but you can still see William Byron and Justin Haley, or I'm sorry, Austin Cindric and William Byron are much better across the board. It's not even close. The Fords are not even getting close to as fast as what Willie B is. What's up, Family Man? You're just getting off of work? Oh my God, dude. That's so late. I know, this time of year kicks your butt. And then you've got football starting up. Yeah. And then we look at the Toyotas. And this is just about awful. The Toyotas are junk. Junk, junk, junk. If you look back at the Chevys, remember the white line is the average. And we got a whole bunch of cars better than average. The Fords, it's okay. It's not great. The Toyotas are junk in practice. The best is Christopher Bell. That's why I said, if I'm going to bet the best Ford, the best Chevy, and the best Toyota, I'm taking Christopher Bell, Austin Cindric, and Willie B. And then these are the guys that are starting in the rear. So 36th through 30th. Cole Custer, Eric Jones, John Hunter, Noah Gregson, Ricky Stenhouse, Riley Herbst, and Ty Dillon, all worse than average, except for Cole Custer is the standout here. So when I'm looking for who's going to be my driver to come from the back, Cole Custer is that driver. Compared to Willie B, not even close. But Cole Custer starting in 33rd, I'll take it. So that's how I'm looking at who do I want to build around, and Cole Custer is that guy. Then, I can't remember what this one was for. Looks like, this is the guy starting 1 through 10. So 1st through 10th, Willie B is the fastest. Christopher Bell is in the blue, kind of skating below everybody else. So it just kind of shows you how much more speed Willie B has got in that car, at least in practice. And he's starting in 10th. Can he work his way to the front? I mean, good possibility. His pit crew's been definitely on it. Better than a lot of the guys he's going to be getting around. He's better than Alex Bowman. Probably slightly better than Ross Chastain. Definitely better than Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's pit crew is like 15th to 17th. Most of ours pit crew is awful. Briscoe's pit crew's actually been pretty good. SVG, not great. Bell's pit crew's been actually pretty good. Kyle Busch's has not. Michael McDowell, actually, his pit crew has been really good. So McDowell, Byron, Bell, and Ross, all decent pit crews, but Willie B gets the award for probably the best. All right, so SVG, I mean, it's SVG. I don't love his practice speeds. I think this track has shown some vulnerability, and he's 12,700. It's the most expensive NASCAR driver so far this year. He has got the worst odds I've ever seen for a NASCAR race. He's minus 125. And it's just, if he had Willie B speed in practice and was starting front row, I'd be like, all right, I quit. SVG is going to walk away with this thing, and it's going to be like Mexico City. And not even think about it. But he's not, his practice speeds were not even close to being as good as William Byron's. So I think there's some vulnerability there. I definitely like the Chase Elliott play coming from 20th. We've talked about Willie B and Christopher Bell a lot on their practice speeds. I really like, and they're starting towards the rear of the top 10. You can play a Willie B and a Christopher Bell with SVG. There's enough place differential between the two of them to play. The problem is you're eating up a lot of salary cap because of that 12,700. You know, where you could probably get away with a Chase Elliott, William Byron, Christopher Bell. I mean, right there's 28,000. So you've got 21,000 left over for the other three drivers. And you can go down and get a Justin Haley and a Cole Custer. And that probably leaves you, probably $65,000 to $7,000 left over. Place differential, guys. I mean, my algorithm says Tyler Reddick, but Tyler Reddick, he's not been that great on road courses this year, and his practice speeds were not great. Ty Gibbs, kind of the same thing. Connor Zilic is out. Kyle Larson, who knows? Practice speeds were not great. They were better than 27th. He was top 10, top 5, and just missed on qualifying. So I expect Kyle Larson to probably be able to work through the field. I just don't like the Ryan Priest play. He's not super great at road courses, and he's starting 17th. If he was starting a little bit further back, I'd be interested. Honestly, it's Austin Cindric, Zane Smith. I don't mind the Justin Haley's, but he's going to have ownership. Cole Custer, Noah Gragson, all playable because they're starting really far in the back. Cole Custer is probably my favorite, though, out of that backpack. The Eric Jones. I like the Todd Gillen, Eric Jones plays. So, all right. 2 hours and 20 minutes in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Next week, we are at Richmond, which is, I live just outside of Richmond. But I am literally about 15 minutes, even with traffic, to the racetrack. So I will be at, I usually don't go to practice and qualifying. It's kind of boring to sit there because you really don't, you just see them going around a circle. To be perfectly honest, it's not competitive. And unless you have some way of tracking all of the practice speeds, it really doesn't show me a whole lot. So I typically just wait and go to the truck race or next week is the truck race, and then on Friday, and then the cup race on Saturday night during this time. So when will I be doing my live video? Probably at about 11 a.m. on Saturday. Maybe 12. Somewhere between 11 and 12. That's going to be, because you have to think, I'm also going to the truck race Friday night. Somewhere in there, I'm going to have to get home and put all this information in to do the video. Whoops. So bear with me a little bit. The video will happen on Saturday, somewhere between, let's say, 10 and 2. But I'll be on live. There'll be plenty of time to set lineups. I don't think the race is until like 7:30. Either way, I appreciate you tuning in. Hit the like, subscribe button. We'll see you next week. Good luck. Let me know if you hit anything. And yeah, it sucks for Connor Zillage. That's just tough luck. So either way, thanks for tuning in. See you guys next week. Bye.
Gentlemen, start your engines. 40 cars coming to life.
Can you still pace the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here.
Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so gotta be around the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Go have some fun. Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker pass, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.